Hello everybody, a very warm welcome back to the MEC-TEC Garage. The saga continues on the three-wheeled van. If you saw the last episode, you would have seen that we got majority of the electrics in the engine bay in there, turning over and starting on the key. But when we did get the engine started, now we've got the gauge connected, we didn't have any oil pressure. So that is going to be the next thing we really need to focus on this, because I obviously don't want to knacker this engine as well, like what happened with the last block where it all went horribly wrong and I had to rebuild it into another block. So I'm hoping that it's going to be all right, fingers crossed. So we need to crack on and get the sump off, I think, and have a look at this oil pump and see what is going on in there, because there's something definitely not right, and we need to obviously get it sorted ASAP so we can carry on and move on with other things on the van and make some more progress. So without further ado, let's crack on, get some work done. Right, just sort of show you what we've got going on here. This is the check valve for the oil pressure, which I've taken out. As you can see, it's all intact, the spring's fine, the ball bearing's still round, there's nothing wrong with that as far as I can tell. I've checked the hole in the side up there, as you can just about see, there's nothing blocking that, and you can see the little hole above it, the other threaded bit which is up here to the right of the screen, that is the other hole for the oil pressure sensor. I can't see anything blocking that either, and that's where the oil was just sort of trickling out. So next step now, once again, is to get this sump off, obviously drain the oil again. Hopefully I'll be able to reuse this oil, because it's only just been put back in there from when I put the new shells back in, or the old shells back in I should say. So I'm going to get that drained out, we'll get the sump back off, and we'll see what the hell's going on inside. Right, with the sump off, there's nothing I can see that is immediately wrong, which is both good and bad really, I guess, because there's nothing obvious that I've left off or not done up or anything like that. But on the same token, obviously I don't know why it's not pumping properly unless that pump has just had it. So I'm going to take the oil pump off. It's held on with those two nuts up there. I'll get that off. Maybe we'll have a little look on the bench compared to another one I've got and see if there's any differences inside and what's what as such. I also want to check that once I've got this pump off, I'm going to get Mrs. MEC-TEC to turn the key, just to turn the engine over and make sure that the shaft that drives it, which goes up to the bottom of the distributor, is turning correctly at both ends, and make sure that obviously that's all right, and obviously check everything there. So I'll get this oil pump off and I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, I've got Mrs. MEC-TEC here. She's going to turn the key and we'll see if this drive shaft thing spins. Just give it a little bump, Jim. Alright, yep, that's spinning. Okay, do it again for us. Yep, it's definitely spinning. There's nothing, there's a bit of up and down movement, but that I think is where the gear locks into the cam. Let's do it again, Jim. Yeah, okay, it's definitely spinning. Right, I don't think it's that. That seems to be engaging okay. So carry on with the investigations. Right, with the pump out the engine, I've got the housing up there, as you can see, and I've unbolted the actual pump part off, which is this bit here. I can't see, that bolt's just about to fall out. I can't see anything physically wrong with it from the outside. I had another pump which I've just, oh, there goes one of the bolts, which I've just taken out of this housing, and I've taken the lid off the bottom of it. That is all that is inside an oil pump. It's just like an impeller, which obviously turns to pump the oil. This one was actually seized up before I took it apart, and as soon as I undone it, it freed up. So there's nothing actually wrong with this one. So I'm going to take my one apart now. I've got to take this gasket off, which is a gasket I made, which I don't think will have any bearing on anything. I don't think. Take that off of there. The other bolts out of it, and I'm going to take that that screw out there. In fact, this one's only got two. This one's only got, hang about, this one's only got one screw holding it together. That one had two. That's interesting. Okay. I'm going to do a bit of investigation with this. I'm going to take that one screw out on this one. That one, to show you, you can see it's got two holes in it there and there. And it had two screws in it, which holds that onto there, like that. And then it lines up with those two holes there. So, yeah, in fact, looking at the architecture of this, to the two together, they are slightly different. They've changed the architecture of the pump slightly. Don't know why. You can see there's an extra screw hole in this one there, built into that little chamber, whereas this one's just blocked off and it's not got anything there. That's really weird. Alright, I'm going to take this one apart and see what's inside this one in comparison to that one. Right, there you go, both side by side. They are identical in every way, except for this one has dowel pins on it, the one I was adding the engine in. It's only got one screw which holds it in there, whereas that one hasn't got dowel pins and it's got two screws that hold it in, one there and one there. That is the only difference. And when I turn this one, you can actually see the oil pushing out of it. So I'm assuming that's right. This just lifts out, if I remember rightly. Whoop. It says as he drops it on the floor. Where's that gone? Do me all pump good, wouldn't it? Covered it in grease and dirt. But yeah, there's nothing else in there. Right, I'm going to give this impeller a clean up and put it back in. Right, I'm hoping I've found the culprit. I've been looking around at different things and this collar is up the wrong way and it allows too much slot in this little shaft that drives it. So I'm going to knock this pin back out through here. Got a dowel pin that runs through there. Flip that over. This thick end should be at the top. I think that will take up some of the slack. And also, if this part of the pump is hitting the base of the, sorry, if this part of the collar is hitting the base of the housing of the pump before it does up tight, then obviously it won't let it go all the way home, if that makes sense. Although it felt like it was all the way home, something wasn't quite right there. So I'm going to flip that round and hopefully, fingers crossed, that cures our problem. So I'm officially a numpty. You can all call me an idiot, I don't care. There you go, I've swapped that round and there's virtually no play in that at all now. It is how it should be. A little tiny bit, obviously, but that is meshing with the gears. And obviously that collar at the top there is stopping it riding up and down. So I'm praying now that that fixes my oil pressure problem. So I'm going to have to put it all back together again. I can't see anything else wrong. Won't take long to put it back together. I'm going to leave the sump as it is for the minute, just to make double sure that it's going to be all right. It's probably going to leak everywhere, but I'd rather do that and then we'll come back and take the sump back off and change the gasket, which I was going to do anyway at some point. So, because obviously we put that back on there temporarily. Either that, or I might get this old gasket off and put the new one on and just stick it to the sump side for now, just in case we have any more issues. Could do that, I suppose. That'd probably be a better idea. At least it won't leak quite so much then. But yeah, I think that's gonna hopefully solve our issues with any luck. I can't believe I put it on around the wrong blooming way. Then when I was looking in the manual and I was like, mine don't look like that. So yeah, there we go. Lesson learned. Another life's lesson to be take heed of, or whatever the word is. Right, this is a moment of truth. I've got the sump back on with a new gasket, sealed on one side only. I've spilled oil everywhere, putting the oil back in the van. We won't worry about that for now. I'm just trying to wipe some of it up over here. In theory, I've hooked the sensor back up on the light for now. So we've got the light on there, as you can see. When I crank this, I've not got the cord connected, so it won't start. But that oil light should, in theory, go out. So let's see what happens. Nothing. Not going out still. What on earth's going on? Still not going out. It should go out unless there's something wrong with that sensor. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to connect the gauge back up and see whether we get anything coming out of that gauge. Right, I've just took the sensor off and there is literally nothing coming out of that hole. So I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm going to crank it again and see if anything comes out. Literally nothing. I do not know what is going on. I really don't. Right, as you can see, I've got the oil filter off and I've actually got a cable going through from the sensor hole through to the oil filter hole there, as you can see in the middle, going in and out. Now the oil filter is the only thing I can think I've changed between having the other engine block and this engine block. And when I took it off, just zoom you out a bit, there's the other oil filter that I just took off. It's a MEC oil filter. When I tried to empty it, I couldn't get everything out of it except if I banged it on the floor, which is a bit weird. So I'm not very happy with that oil filter. Now I'm just going to crank this and I'll show you what flow I've got coming out of that housing there. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. There's tons of oil coming out of the oil filter there, so it's pumping it, definitely pumping it up to there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fit the new oil filter again, the new oil filter, fill it up, and then see if we get it coming out of that sensor hole now, because before it wasn't coming out at all. So I'm hoping I may have unblocked something, either that or this filter that I had on there was faulty in some way or another. So I'm going to get this new one fitted. I've got a Bosch one this time, just shows you the difference. Here's the new Bosch one, there's the old MEC one. So I'm going to change it over and see what we get out of that sensor hole now. Right, you can see the sensor hole now there. Now I've got the oil filter on. Let's crank this over and see if any oil comes out of that hole now. Absolutely nothing. I'm absolutely stumped onto why there's no oil coming out of that hole. It doesn't make any sense unless it's got to be running, which it would be the first engine I've ever known of that's got to be running to get oil pressure. I really don't know what's going on. Right, I'm going to have another little look and I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, time for a little experiment. This is the 4-pronged pump. I have actually just done this, but I had my arm in the way of the camera, so I have to do it again. This one had a lot of trouble priming. Couldn't get it to pump, but as you can see, it is pumping out of there. Trying to get this central, this shaft thing. Not mega amounts of flow, really. I know the engine will obviously be turning quicker than this. So that's that one. And then I'm going to put in the 5-pronged pump spare that I've got, and I'll show you that one as well. Try not to get oil everywhere. Just swap it round so that I've got oil in one and not the other. That makes sense. Stay there. Right. to slot in, hang on. This one didn't have any problem priming. It seemed to pump out quicker. It seems to pump out quicker to me. On the same sort of turning motion, we're getting a lot more flow out of it. So I suppose the only thing I can do now is take the one back out of the engine, see how it compares to these. There you go. Right, I've got the sump back off the engine yet again, and I'm now going to test this pump to see what this one does. This is the one that actually was in the engine. Let's see. Hoping it ain't going to work. No, it's fine. Exactly the same as the others. Identical. There's nothing wrong with that pump at all. Nothing wrong with that at all. So, the only thing I can think it can be now is that there's an oil-way blocked in the block to that port where the sensor reads, because that is pumping. So in theory, the engine has had oil pressure all along. It's just not showing it. That's what I can get from that. I just want to do it again just to make sure. The only thing I have noticed is, since I've had this pump out compared to those ones, is that this is slightly on the wonk compared to being clocked square. But I don't think that makes a lot of difference. As long as it's under oil, it doesn't matter. It's not square now and it's still working. As I say, there's nothing to these pumps, so I don't think there'd be anything wrong with it. You can see it pumping on there, look. And bear in mind, I'm doing this by hand and it's pumping. I wouldn't have said there's anything wrong with that. That is doing, I think, what it should be doing. So I'm still, at the moment, got no idea what the hell's going on. Right, having done a lot of investigation work and talking to people on Facebook and on the owners group, a massive thanks to you guys, I'm pretty sure that I've got the wrong pressure relief valve in here. I've got the earlier one and this is a later block. Now this was in here, you can see the ball bearing in there, it's not sitting in the hole to block the oil passage to get pressure, because there's no sleeve in there. So that is my problem, I think. I'm pretty sure of that. So I need to get a later style. This engine, by the way, is dated October 1980, and 1980 was the year they changed to the one-piece pressure relief valve. So I'm pretty sure this has been fitted with the wrong valve. Either that, I can't remember whether I did it or whether it was in there when I got the block, but whichever way around, it's wrong. So I need to get a later pressure relief valve to go in there, which is like a cartridge type thing rather than a spring and a ball bearing, and hopefully that's going to hopefully that's going to cure my problem with any luck. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm pretty confident of that, so I'm going to get the oil pump put back on, get the sump put back on and refill it with oil, and then obviously when I can get the new pressure relief valve, then obviously I'll get that fitted and hopefully we should be in business with any luck. Let's get this put back on and I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, I've got a new oil pressure sensor on order for this. It needs the later type one, so hopefully that is my problem. I've got the sump and the oil pickup back on, so that's all sorted out. So I'm going to turn my attention back to electrics while we're waiting for that part to arrive. And as you can see in here, we've got quite a few bullet connectors which go to the rear of the car and connect to this loom here, all these separate connectors. Now these aren't the most reliable things in the world, as you would have seen if you saw one of my Stobart videos. I spent ages chasing a problem with the rear lights. It turned out to be one of these connectors that was hidden under there. So what I've done is I've got myself a new plug. This is from Amazon. It's just a generic plug with a waterproof seal around it. Obviously clicks together like that. I can't do it with one hand, but you get the idea. So what I'm thinking is, there we go. What I'm thinking is I'm going to wire in this as opposed to all those separate terminals and we'll just have one plug which goes to the back of the van. That should eliminate any connection problems. Now, hindsight being 2020 or whatever the word is, probably should have soldered this in before we put the lube in there, because it is going to be a bit of a pain getting in there to try and solder this half of the plug on. It comes pre-cut, these wires, so they're actually pre-cut, so you just pull the ends off and obviously they're already stripped, so that's quite good. But I am going to solder and heat shrink these on in here rather than crimps or anything like that, because I want to obviously make sure they've got a good connection and they're never going to have to be touched again. So I've got to try and work out what I've written on these manky bits of masking tape. I numbered them all so I know which ones go with which, so I've got to do that. Obviously make sure the colours are matching as well whilst I do it, and we'll get this side hopefully wired into the van, and then we can do this side obviously on the bench or on the table. It'll be a lot easier to obviously get it so that they match up. So that's the plan. Whether I can do it or not in situ remains to be seen, but I'm hoping I'm going to be able to, and it should be a bit better job than what the old style bullet connectors do after 50 odd years. They do have a tendency for these connectors in here, the sockets in particular, to break in half, and then you get a bad connection, and then obviously lights don't work. So I'm going to get set up with a soldering iron and some cutters and whatever else, and we'll see what we can do. Right, I've got the trusty old soldering iron set up. This was my dad's soldering iron he gave me a long while ago, or he actually left it here when he moved house. It's on a board which he put it on, and I screwed the transformer to it years ago so it wouldn't fall off, and it just so happens that the piece of wood that it's mounted on is exactly the same width as the opening on a Reliant van. So how about that? I didn't know that until now, so that is absolutely perfect. You couldn't have made that any more perfect if you tried. So I'm going to get cutting and soldering, and see what we can do with this plug. Right, there is our first join done. As you can see, that one is actually 2 wires into one. Not 100% sure why, but that's the way it was wired up, so that's the way I've done it. So that is our first wire done. I'm going to carry on like that through the other. I think there's 7 wires on the other side, but 6 wires on this side, because 2 go into 1, if that makes sense. I know it sounds a bit strange, but that's how it works out. So I'm going to get the 6 wires done, or the other 5 I should say, done on this side. I think there's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 5. I'm going to get those done. They're obviously the hardest ones inside the engine bay there. I've managed to get a little bit of slack on the loom to obviously bring the plug up in the air a little bit. I'll get those done and we'll move on to the other side. Right, there we go. Just zoom you in a little bit. That is our plug wired in, heat shrunk, soldered, and if I zoom you in really close, you'll be able to see I've actually scribed the numbers of the wires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on there, so I know exactly which ones go where. And I've also scribed it on the other side on the plug on that one as well. If you can focus on that. Hang on a second. There you go. You can see I've scribed the same numbers on this one to correspond with that. So when they click together, hopefully all the wires should be in the correct spots. So now I've got to do the same on this side. Let me zoom you out. Do the same on this side with this other tail onto this bit of loom. I thought there were 7 wires, but there's actually only 6. So there was 7 on this side, but 2 go into 1. So that's where I obviously made a mistake. I've got an 8-pin plug, but that's okay. I've got 2 wires spare, so if I need to run any other things to the back, I could run a 12-volt socket to the back, or I could run, maybe if I put a smoke machine in it to mimic the smoke coming out of Del Boy's van, I could run that through this plug as well. And obviously then run the other wires from this side to wherever they need to go, power wires and earth wires. So I've got 2 wires spare should I need to do anything like that, so that's okay. Right, let's get this other side wired in. That actually went a lot easier than I thought. I thought it was going to be a right pain soldering in there, but it actually went really well, so I'm quite chuffed about that. I thought it was going to take a long while. Yeah, so that's good. Top banana, I can poke that back down there now. Actually no, I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to tape it up first. I'm going to tape all that up so you can't see any of them joins. I'm not sure what to do about those extra 2 wires yet. I think I'll leave them sticking out so I can use them if I need to, otherwise I've got to untape it all again. Maybe I'll just put a little cable tie around them just to hold them to the main part of the loom as such, and I know which ones are which then, as far as what's the main part of the loom and what's 2 spares. That'll work out quite well. Then this plug can then thread underneath the column over here, and I'm going to run it out this way down the side of the footwell where you don't see, and then it'll go down. Obviously it'll join onto the other bit of loom with this plug. That'll go down and run down the side of the chassis all nice and neat, and you won't see any of it. So that should be absolutely superb. I'm really chuffed with that. Top banana. Right, there we go. That is the other end plug, or the rear loom plug I should say, all done, all heat shrunk and soldered. That went really well too. I was quite chuffed with that. I may put a little bit of extra tape around the joins just to make sure that nothing pokes through that heat shrink. Obviously this hopefully will seal it, but I want to just put a bit of extra, just a little bit of tape over those joins, just so that I know nothing's going to stick through and short out from wire to wire. And then I'm going to tape all this up to the end so that it looks nice and neat, apart from these 2 wires which are obviously spare. I'll do the same on that side. I think actually the heat shrink on that side, I can't feel any knobbles in that side. This side's got a couple of little tiny knobbles in it where obviously the solder's just got a little bump in it or whatever. I think it'll be fine, but just want to sort of belt and braces, you know. So get that done, get this side taped up as well, and then we can poke all that underneath the steering column down there, plug it in, and then we can run this down the end of the other end of the car. And then we've got to join it onto, it wouldn't have had another join in it, but this one's been cut, so I've got to join this onto the rear loom which goes in the boot, which obviously feeds all the lights and the fuel sender. So this basically runs down to the back, and then we've got one more join to obviously join it onto the other bit of wiring. I'm not 100% sure where that is, that other bit of wiring. I think it's around here. What's this up here, is that it? No, that's not it. Yeah, not sure where that's gone at the moment, but it's somewhere around here, as you can probably imagine. So I want to get this taped up, and then I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, next job before I go any further with wiring is I've got the speedo back out, as you can see, and I've given the back a complete clean up. Got rid of all the mankiness and corrosion that was on it, and I'm going to actually give it a little coat of paint while we've got it off. I need to do some masking, obviously, to mask up the front, mask up these areas around these plugs on the back of these gauges, and also I need to make sure that these holes have a little bit of metal left around each one of them, because they actually provide the earth for the lights that go in there. So I'm going to spend a bit of time masking all this up. It's going to take a little while, so I'll do that off camera. And once I've got it all masked up, I'll show you what I've done, and then we'll get it painted and put back in. Let's carry on. Right, there we go. That is all masked up. I've actually taken the glass back off the front, which you can see there. And I need to obviously just put that face down on something flat, so I can, didn't show that, so I can paint it. I'm going to get a cut primer on there, and I'm going to do it in machine silver, the same silver as I did the coil and the indicator stalking. Maybe some lacquer just to protect it, and then we should be top banana. Let's carry on. Let's get some paint going. Right, there we go. That is the back of the Speedo, all refurbished, looking absolutely marvellous. Pretty pleased with how that's come out. You can see the rings around the holes where the lights go in. Obviously they're not all quite even, unfortunately, but they're as close as I could get it, so you won't see that once the plugs are on there, and it will still earth to where it needs to. I made sure I left these bolts where it bolts into, nearly dropped it, bolts where it bolts into bare, because obviously it does earth on that, or rather there's a wire that goes on there to earth to something else as well, so didn't want to obviously make those so they weren't a good contact. Left the Speedo drive, obviously the threads are masked up and the end of the Speedo drive are masked up, and obviously all the gauges so they didn't get paint all over them. So that is looking absolutely marvellous. Now I've got the glass back on it again, give it a bit of a clean, so that can now go back in the van, hopefully for the final time. I want to do a little bit of tidying up on the wiring, just get a bit of tape around some of the wires that are in there, because it is a little bit wires everywhere at the moment. So I'm going to sort that out, and then we'll get the gauge back in. And then I've had a delivery. I've hopefully got the answer to our oil pressure problems, which is, should have been a bit more prepared and got this out of the bag, the latest style oil pressure sensor. Hang on, I'm using my tooth using my teeth to open the bag. Right, there we go. Courtesy of James from CXG, thank you James. That is the latest style oil pressure relief valve with a new O-ring on. Now they changed these, there's a bulletin out from Reliant in December 1980. Have a guess what year my engine is. Yep, 1980. So someone, whether, I don't know whether I did it or whether it was already in there, but someone's put the wrong oil pressure relief valve in there. So I'm going to get this fitted, get our gauge back in, and then we'll see if the oil light goes out when I crank it over. I'm praying to God, fingers crossed, can't cross my fingers, but I'm praying to God this is the answer. Let's carry on. Right, I've got my original Mal oil filter back on here, because this is the one with the shut-off valve in it, and I don't think that was the issue after all. So I put that back on. We have got our valve, which I need to put a little bit of oil around this new O-ring on the end. Just grab a bit of oil. I'm not very prepared for this, am I? Right. Oil around that. Doesn't matter how much because it's all going in there anyway. That goes in there. And hope and pray it fits. That's a good start. Hope and pray that this is our issue. Now that isn't screwing all the way in easily. I don't know whether it should or shouldn't. I'm assuming it's going to have a little bit of resistance because of that O-ring. Make sure it's got oil all around it. Please go in. Right, I'm probably going to have to get a spanner on that just to wind that in all the way. And then the last thing we've got to put back in is our little oil sensor, which goes in that hole just there. And then I'll nip that up as well with a spanner. So those are the two bits we need to put back in under here. I'm going to tighten these up. Hopefully that one tightens up all right. Go back top side again, fill it up with oil, and then we'll go for a crank and see if that oil light finally goes out. Right, everything is crossed. As you can see, we've got an oil and ignition light. It's not going to start because I've not got the distributor connected, but I want to see if we get oil pressure, if that light goes out there. Let's see what happens. Still nothing. I don't understand. I really don't, unless it's got to be running. Yes, it's gone out. Yes! It's worked. That should come back on again in a second. Please come back on again. Make sure it's working all right. Once it loses oil pressure, that should come back on. If it works, just cranking it, then we should be good. There you go. It's come back on. Yes! Yes, it worked. Brilliant. Let me crank it again, see if it goes out. Yes! That's brilliant. So that should come back on again in a second. The oil's not going to drain back mega quick because it's got that oil filter with the here you go, it's come back on. It's got the oil filter with the valve in it, so it doesn't drain back. That is absolutely mega. So we've got oil pressure. Yes, brilliant. I am so happy. Right, for once in my life, I can end a video smiling with the knowledge that I've sorted out the problem that I set out to do. I am so chuffed that that oil light went out, because I thought, heart of hearts, that I was going to have that engine back out again. And having bolted so much to the body now, that is a lot harder with the body on than it is with just a chassis sitting there. So I am mega chuffed that it has sorted it out. I need to say a massive thank you to everyone on Facebook who has messaged me with a post on the Reliant forum explaining the different types of pressure relief valves. I didn't know there was two, to be honest with you. So they are absolute stars. Thank you for that. Thanks to my mate Danny. He's been on the phone, you know, offering ideas and what it could be and this, that and the other to check and everything else as well. So I'm mega appreciative of all of you. Thank you so much for helping me sort it out. I can't believe I don't know what to say. I'm just so happy that it's all right. Well, in theory it's all right. Obviously I haven't had it running again since, but I need to sort the timing out on the distributor. I'm not going to bore you with that. We've done that before. I'll do that off camera, get it running again now it's got oil pressure. Run it a little while and hopefully everything should be absolutely fine. So remember to do 4 things for me. If you like what you see, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like, hit the notification bell and share the video with all your friends. It's all free, it costs you absolutely nothing, and it really makes a massive difference to me on the channel as far as obviously subscribers and things like that, and I really do appreciate it. So if you could do those things for me, it costs you nothing and takes you seconds, so it would be massively appreciated by me. Remember, I've got Instagram, MEC_TEC 1985, and I have got Facebook, MEC-TEC, for little sneak peeks during the week of what I'm up to. You can probably hear I'm a bit colded up at the moment, man flu, whatever you want to call it, so bear with me. Anyway, I'm waffling. Thanks very much for watching, and if you do want to join me soon for more automotive adventures, I'll see you again next time. Cheers guys.